Tim, would you like to respond to this point about eternity?
Well, I think, there are certainly Christian theologians that would, like actually Jonathan Edwards, who used to hang out here in Yale, I think would actually say that whereas God is not confined to this world, but that actually the world is, God is infused through the world, and in some ways the world is an aspect of God's being. So, but then where he differ, I think, from your ancient pagans is would say, but then there actually is, he is also transcendent above the world. Now, by the way, there are a number of other Christian theologians who said Edwards was just a darn pantheist. So, I mean, there are Christians who wouldn't go that far, and they would be the people, I think, that Tony is talking about as being that's a real cleavage. But I do think there's also a way of thinking about the world that would probably, a Christian way to think about the world that would probably account for the sorts of factors that I think Tony is talking about, but wouldn't stop there. Because ultimately, the big difference, I think, is that our understanding, Christian understanding, is that God is also personal. He's not just infinite. I mean, I just used the word he, personal pronoun. God is infinite and personal, not just infinite, and that's the big difference. And I don't know that we're not going to solve that here, but if you're just trying to clarify the differences, that would be the difference, I think.
Here is one way, perhaps, of trisecting theologically some views about the relationship between God and the world, or between time and eternity. First view, the world is eternal, or eternity is in the world. It's nothing apart from it, over and above it. God isn't. God has no separate existence or meaning apart from those features of the world which really are eternal. That's Aristotle's view, very roughly. I've just spared you about 1,500 pages of dense philosophical material, so there it is in a nutshell. But Aristotle's God, though an immanent one, was not an infinite God. In fact, for Aristotle and for all of the great philosophers of classical antiquity, infinity was a curse word. To be infinite was to be unintelligible, formless, shapeless, something that you couldn't get your mind around, and therefore without reality. Because the great Greek philosophers in particular equated intelligibility with being. To be is to be intelligible, and something that's infinite isn't intelligible, and therefore it doesn't really exist. So the idea of an infinite God was an oxymoron. It simply made no sense. The God of Abraham is certainly an infinite God, infinitely powerful God. God's resources are without bounds or limits, but not an immanent God in Aristotle's sense. God is to be thought of as a being, a source of being, a Godhead, whose existence is defined, at least in crucial part, by his separation from the world. Third theology, this is my trisection. This would be my born-again paganism. God is immanent, so we're back to Aristotle. God is no different from the world viewed as, Spinoza says, under a certain aspect, namely the aspect of eternity. But my immanent God is an infinite God as well, not localized here or there, not restricted to the general properties or forms or shapes of things, to the laws of the universe, but infinitely present in the infinitesimally least of things. the hardest theology of them all to wrap your mind around, but I think that of the three, it's the best one.
How would you answer Aristotle that an infinite God is unintelligible, since you believe in an infinite God?
Well, this is a hugely difficult question and a wildly oversimplified answer to it. What Aristotle got wrong, in my view, was his answer to the question, can we ever understand the world in its entirety? Yes. Can we ever come to an end in our quest for comprehension, so far as the God of the world is concerned? And Aristotle said, yes, we can. We can understand the divinity of the world without remainder. We can't hold on to that understanding for indefinitely long periods of time because we are finite beings, we get hungry, we need to sleep. But when we're really thinking clearly, we have our minds around the whole of everything that can be minded, that can be thought. That's wrong. There isn't anything in the world, not the least little speck of a gnat, of a flea, of a fly, of a thing, that can ever be understood completely. There will always be more to be known about it. It runs on to infinity in its intelligibility, which we get a kind of a handhold on, but spend a lifetime, a series of lifetimes, barely making a beginning toward an understanding of this endlessly wonderful, intelligible, and beautiful world that we inhabit.